New day. New day, everybody's here again. New big day. Got the ladies coming today. Won't be doing it live. And I forget. Not sure if they will be showing their faces or not. I remember before, because of some unrelated topics, I think political, possibly something. The ladies asked to keep their identities private. Fine by me. So we'll see how I do film this. I don't know, maybe I might get them to sit right here and put a little camera on that shelf right there, just show the back of their heads maybe, and then me sitting across. I don't know. I'll figure it out when they get here. And then I will be posting that tomorrow. And like I said earlier, I'm going to put this other one video in the membership only department for a short amount of whatever, for a little while, and because we're gonna feed some kids. All right, that's my goal, and I know the ladies are gonna be all over that because they are all about helping people, especially children as well. So I think that'll be really good. And no, it doesn't mean the channel is not membership only. All right, I'm gonna throw this video in there with 100% motivated to feed some more children. That's what I'm going to do. Sarah's pretty stoked about it. So what we're going to do is Sarah is going to be selecting who we're going to feed, and then she's going to go shopping. She's a mom, and do a substantial grocery shop, and then they can either come and pick that food up or we'll deliver it. Whatever we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. We're going to feed a bunch of children. That really hit me hard the other day when she showed me what's going on. It's something when you see ads online or commercials or whatever about helping starving, hungry people, the world's falling apart, etc. But when you see it right in your frickin' backyard and you see just how many moms are scrambling to get some food that's offered up for free because their kids are freaking hungry and they can't get food. What? Anyway, I'll try to bite my lip because I could really go on a bit of a ripper right now, especially when one of the main criminals who sleazed his way in a position of being it's a leadership position, but he's no leader, is flying away and spending, what was it? $8,400 a night or some damn thing at holiday. Spent $84,000 on a holiday the other day. $84,000, sent billions over to help kill people and locked the bank accounts of people who wanted to speak their mind and support free speech and protest, legal protest. And meanwhile, there's children hungry, man. There's children hungry here. Right in my frickin' backyard. All over the place. Everywhere. Hungry kids. All right. Here we go. Moving along. There's going to be some happy tummies here pretty quick. Some more happy tummies, I mean. Now, let's get into it. Let's hear from some people. I don't know who we're going to hear from, but we're going to hear from some right now. All right, here we go. Oh, better mark this as red. My encounter in the heart of Cajun country, Louisiana. Hello, Steve. The first part's for you, but you may share if you see fit to do so. All right. A little history on the Cajuns. A few paragraphs. All right, got it. All right, man. Now, my encounter. Okay, this took place in a little town of St. Landry Parish, about the middle of 2023. A good buddy of mine who had just had a bad accident on his motorcycle was moving back into town, and with his daughter and in with his daughter, as he would be on the mend for a couple of months. I would drop in to check on him and hang out sometimes. She lives in the very back of a neighborhood which itself backs up some pretty good woods behind her house. We would be outside a lot, and we would like to throw the frisbee or a flying disc right in front of her house on the road that's right up against these woods. Well, the first thing that we thought of as strange was a neighbor down a few houses had a fence he was having put up that ran from his house in those woods right off the road to down where my buddy's daughter's house was, and on down some. The strange thing was the size. The fence was tall, about 6 feet, with an electrical wire on top of that. We asked the guys installing the fence, "What is that fence for?" They said for some cows. They acted strange when telling us. Now, we've never seen such a type of fence for cattle, and we never even saw any cows at all. And the property behind her house wasn't all his. It looked like he was trying to keep something from coming out of those woods to his direction and to the other couple homes on the street. Well, I started telling my buddy, "Man, this looks like some good woods for the old Bigfoot," halfway joking with him since he wasn't a real believer. I definitely was, as I've seen the evidence through research, but never having seen one. Well, about a week later, and one of the first times I was dropping him off, and it was late, about 1 a.m., we were unloading some stuff from my SUV, and we heard it. It was a low, deep, guttural growl that we both heard. We looked at each other and was like, "What the F?" We both knew it wasn't anything like anything else we'd ever heard, and it was damn spooky. And that was it for that night, but over the next couple of months, we would be outside and hear strange things. We heard an owl. It sounded like something mimicking an owl. We heard it sounded like a woman making some kind of a crying sound. We had a few things tossed at us, nothing big, and we could never find it, just hear it, except once. That time, it was a stick about the size of a boomerang landed in the street. My buddy was up by the road, and the hair on his neck stood up. He took his phone out and held it up and just snapped off a couple pics facing the direction we thought it came from. One pic I have enclosed, and it freaked me out a little bit. There were some bushes there, and it was dark. I don't think he even had the flash on, but he might have. Well, it picked up these 2 red eyes, I guess, and they would have been about 8 feet tall. They almost look like 2 red lights, and you can see what appears to be a conical head from the glow of these eyes. Now, I'm not trying to prove anything by this pic, and my buddy is kind of an artist, so he takes pics on weird settings sometimes and plays the pics. But he showed me this pic 15 seconds after he took it. And that's what I've sent you. It looks like a being with 2 red eyes, and you can kind of see a head that comes to a point on top. It was an older phone, and I'm giving you my word that that is what he snapped. Now, we saw nothing red with our own eyes, just darkness. We would hear some sticks breaking sometimes, and all the dogs from around would go off barking sometimes. And that's really about it, as he only stayed with her for a couple of months, then moved into his place. Now her mom, his ex-wife told me she had been getting the creeps anytime she was there and it was dark. I would too get some spooky feelings sometimes at night when we'd be tossing the frisbee, as it was so close to the woods. I never felt the hair-raising alert, though, like he did. Well, that's about it, Steve. It wasn't too long, but I figured it might add the small piece to the old book of knowledge. You rock, my man. Keep up the good work you do for your fellow man. Count us in as having your back on the side of truth and justice. If it could ever be a service for the cause, please don't hesitate in asking. Thank you very much, brother. Warm regards, and God bless you and your whole crew up there. J. Bacon. And yours too, my man. Appreciate the kind words and the invite. And the time you just spent sharing this with all of us. And there's a photo. I'm going to zoom that up a bit. Yeah, that's pretty creepy, man. You can see if that was what we all have had described. It looks like a head on an angle with 2 eyes, and possibly the reflection, the glow, is reflecting off of Top of its head, maybe, possibly, right? There you go. And that was in the distance, so I zoomed that up myself, but that's the original photograph I got. I guess maybe I'll put that in the video, right? I don't know how I'm making out sharing photos doing it this way, but there you go. Another location, another experience. And the fence, I get it, man. I totally understand that somebody would attempt to build a fence like that to keep these out of the yard, especially if you got these people out of the yard, especially if you've got children. But if you've been here any length of time and you've heard from our nuclear scientists and military personnel who have shared numerous times that even the security barriers around nuclear facilities and armed forces bases don't keep them out. End of story. Right? They don't keep them out. They just don't. All right, who's next? Australian Weird Times, edited and expanded. Evening. Hope you and your family are doing well. I originally emailed you these encounters around the end of September 23, after listening to several more of your shows since then, and you saying to include everything, as you were swamped with emails. So I thought I'd add to my original email, and after reading my original email, there are a few grammar errors. I was born and raised in Australia. I'm not going to include my full name, though you can call me Blue, due to my red hair, an Aussie nickname for redheads. Really? Blue. An Aussie nickname for redheads. That's interesting. I haven't told anyone of these encounters, and I'd like to share some strange and weird experiences that seem to follow me no matter what part of the country I'm in. Another pattern. Exposed. I'm not a person you call a believer or non-believer. I'm kind of indifferent, as I believe anything is possible, but I'm not one to go looking, as I have no need to. I'm a kind of, you live your life and I'll live mine. I've spent a lot of time in the bush working on large cattle stations from the early age of 15, where a lot of the time I was the only white fella, picking up a lot of traditions and superstitions. I'm exactly sure what I've seen or experienced with some of these experiences. I'm going to leave out exact locations, as we've got a bunch of F-tards in our country that don't give a toss about our bush or people and just want to exploit everything for personal gain. We don't have to worry about that. Much about our incompetent government tracking anyone down or following anyone, as they're more worried about schoolroom antics arguing over who's sitting at the big boy chair. Sorry, this might be a bit long-winded, so I'll break them down in numbered instances for you if you want to cut it short. A quick rundown on my background. My Nana taught me to shoot, both eyes open, iron sights, started with little 177 Diana air rifle. My grandpa honed my skills in. He was a fox and rabbit shooter and trapper before World War II. And during the war, he was a lead gunner in the Light Horse Brigade at the start of World War II. Since he came from the war, my Nan and my mom said my grandpa would only use a rifle when needed, and if my Nan wasn't around. At around 5 or 6 years old, shooting paper, then tuning in my accuracy, shooting onion weed, then on to moving targets as my Nan would roll a patty melon along the ground. Then moved on to rabbits, feral cats, and foxes. Progressed on from there. I've now been a pro roo shooter / harvester for 24 years. Long hours, always night shift. Shooting upwards of 8,000 roos a season. Anywhere up to 300 meters. Though most roos are taken within 100 meters. You don't have to read this little ramble if you don't want. For those that think we just slaughter roos, as the media and green groups would have it, it's not like that. You have to be licensed, safe, food accredited, and have passed on an accuracy test. All roos must be headshot, no exceptions. Each season, DERM, Department of Environmental Resources, does a survey on each species of roo, and 10% of the estimated population is available to purchase tags for each species, all depending on seasons. Some species not available for harvest some years due to environmental factors. Well, that's interesting to me, and I'm sure a bunch of people out here listening. Excuse me. Anyway, when I'm not working, roo shooting, I spend every other day in the bush fishing, hunting, and just looking about. Number 1. My most recent incident, and definitely the one that has rattled me the most, earlier this year, I was in Northeast Victoria, in some remote mountainous scrub, having a look after disastrous bushfires in that area 18 months ago. I parked my ute. Ute is Aussie for a pickup truck. My essentials for a week or so. I'm a bit of a minimalist when I hike and hunt. A few chem pack meals, a bit of water and water collection items, a bivvy, sleeping bag, matches, my compound bow, and 22 lever gun. I've been looking about for 4 days so far. The country was beautifully eerie black. One more time. The country was beautifully eerie. Black scorched trees and green growth everywhere. I shot a few rabbits for Tucker over the past few days. Tucker is Aussie for food, dinner. A few feral pigs due to the destruction they cause, and I'd seen some really good signs of deer and a couple of good stags. That night I had settled down. I had a nice little fire burning and just kicking back against a gum tree, enjoying the night sky and listening to the bush. This was early evening, around 6:30 or so. The sun had completely set about an hour or so ago. I hadn't really noticed the night had gotten really quiet, but I had noticed that it had gotten a lot colder in a short time. A white light caught my eye, and first response was bloody spotlighters, before I realized there is no way it was spotlighters, as you can't get a vehicle into where I was. Then I paid a bit more attention to the light, and it was weird. Bright, but didn't light up the surrounding area. It was hypnotically weaving around and slowly moving closer. When it got to around 50 feet or so away, I got this whole body shake, like a spine chill that went through my whole body, and it lasted a minute or so. Though I didn't have a feeling of dread or fear or anything, really. And the fire that was burning nicely had strangely died down, lost its brightness. Then out of nowhere, a log passed across in front of me and smashed into a tree to my side. Instantly frightened the shit out of me. And then I fell over. And then I fell into an overwhelming feeling of calm and peacefulness. I don't remember anything after that, and I woke up against that tree on sunrise with the fire still burning away. It should have burnt out. I was a bit dazed and unsure what was going on, and had to think what I was doing and where I was. When I was back to reality, I remember everything from last night and looked at the tree the log had hit. The log was around 10 feet long, 8 inches in diameter, and a green log. I couldn't see anywhere near that it had been snapped off of. My little camp hadn't been touched, and I was unharmed. I continued to hike about for another 4 days, I continued to hike about for another 4 days, making my back to my ute before heading back 2,500 kilometers back home. Number 2. That's a weird frickin' night. Number 2. About 3 years ago, I was out shooting roos in my home area, naturally scarce of trees, rolling downs country. It was a bit after midnight. I already had a decent load on the back, and a few hanging up, bleeding out, waiting to be dressed. I'd shot 2 good bucks about 150 meters out or so that I couldn't drive to, so I marched out, put one on each shoulder. Head down, walking back to the ute, I got smacked in the chest by something. Okay, when he said 2 bucks, he means 2 male kangaroos. Here in North America, lots of people are going to think he meant 2 buck deer. I got smacked in the chest by something. I thought it was a locust or something that got stirred up by me or my headlamp, and I didn't think too much of it. I kept walking. I had only taken 2 more steps when I really got smacked in the chest by something that made me look up. I couldn't see anything that would have done it, but I was feeling a bit bloody weird about it, and not 1 meter in front of me was a breakaway gully, square cut about 15 feet deep. I had veered off my track a bit short, cutting it to the ute. I sort of shook off the incident and told myself, watch where you're going, dickhead. Anyway, I get back to the ute and started the process of gutting up. I was partway through the 9th roo when I got a spine chill, like someone had walked over my grave. Like someone or something was very close. This happens a bit as you get sneaky dingoes or foxes coming in while gutting up, stealing the entrails and stuff. I spun around with one hand adjusting my headlamp and my gutting knife in the other hand to see what was hanging around. When I was facing directly behind me, there was this tall, slender, hairy thing, built like a basketballer, somewhere around 7.5 to 8 feet tall. I'm 6'3", and it was head and shoulders above me. About 10 feet behind me, just outside the edge of the work lights. About 10 feet behind you, holy shit. It frightened the shit out of me. I yelled, fuck, and stumbled back into the roos hanging off the back. By the time I got to my feet and looked up, it was gone. I stayed tucked into the roos for 5 or 10 minutes, regaining my composure. I raced around to the driver's seat and started flicking the spotlight around and driving around in slow arc. I didn't see a thing, bar the green eyes of a dingo in the distance. When I was feeling a bit better, I cagily got out of the ute, finished the gut up, and called it a night. Oh, that's creepy. Number 3, about 5 years ago, I was up in the northwestern corner of Arnhem Land. I'm really good mates with a couple of TOs, traditional owners, mainly hunting pigs and catching a few barra and mangrove jack, but also looking for a rumored small population of rusa deer. I was in my 3rd week there, having a really good run fishing and knocking over a wedge feral pigs using dogs and a rifle. I was sitting around the fire one night having a quiet rum and just enjoying life. The dogs were all kicking back after a hard day with my old bitch laying beside my camp chair. And out of nowhere, all 6 dogs instantly stood up, hackles up, ears pinned, and making the strangest growl I've ever heard them make. I went to stand up and my old bitch backed into me, stopping me. Every time I tried to move, she'd purposely put herself in the way. I was able to get to my feet and make it to my ute and grab my lever gun, 45-70, and put on my headlamp thinking it might have been a buffalo or a scrub bull walking into camp. They can be curious when they haven't been exposed to humans. Domestic cattle will always walk up to you in the night when gutting roos. My dogs would let me move far from the ute and were trying to shield me from what was nearby. They were protective, but they had their tails tucked under at the same time. They were scared, which is putting me on edge. While standing there scanning the area with my headlamp, the dirtiest, rancid smell wafted into camp. At the same time, the attitude of my dogs heightened tenfold. I thought I kept seeing shadows/things out of my peripheral, but there was never anything there. This went on for a good half an hour. And then all of a sudden the smell disappeared and the dogs relaxed a bit. I repositioned my chair so my back was against the ute and put my rifle on the ute tray behind my head. I sat there for a number of hours, slowly sipping on rum and looking with all my dogs at my feet. At some point I nodded off and woke at pre-dawn. I stayed there for another week hunting and fishing and nothing happened. Number 4, around 15 years, my brother-in-law, his brother, and myself, all in our late 20s, were doing a conservation hunting trip in southwestern Tasmania. We're getting paid on an hourly rate, plus ammo to control deer numbers and reduce the number of spikers so the good bucks could breed. It was early March, so temperatures were in the mid-teens during the day, but into the minuses overnight. We'd set up camp in nice centrally located spot beside a creek where we based ourselves out for a fortnight. We've been hunting on that area for 6 days without an incident and getting some really good numbers of deer and a good feed of yabbies, bracket, kind of like an American crawfish, end bracket, out of the creek. That afternoon, not long after returning to camp, we were packing about, getting the fire going again. We were poking about, getting the fire going again and preparing some tucker when this long-winded howl/growl came from a long way out in the bush. It sounded like someone was trying to howl with the sound winding up and trailing off, but with real deep note in it, like a growl was mixed in with it. Within 30 seconds to that noise, there was a large banging and crashing in the trees not far from us, with branches snapping and cracking. The noises in the bush would come from different directions around our camp, but never encroached on us. It was like a buffalo or elephant doing a bluff charge. The three of us were seriously spooked. We had frozen in our positions with our heads on a swivel, following the sounds and looking at each other with a semi-terrified expression of what the F is that on our faces. The sounds went on for about 5 minutes or so, but felt like forever. When it was over, we were all pale white, but had no idea what had happened. It took us a bit to settle down before we slowly got back into getting some tucker ready. Just as the last light was disappearing, a wallaby jumped into camp and frightened the actual shit out of the three of us. No doubt. The wallaby must have thought we were the biggest bunch of socks, as we all had the same expression and yelled F like the worst jump scare. Later that night, we were all in our swags trying to get to sleep. My brother-in-law's brother yelled at him to cut his shit out and stop throwing shit at him. I sat up, looked at my brother-in-law at the same time as his brother sat up to look at him. He was sitting up, staring past the fire. I asked him, "You all good, mate?" He stammered, "There's something fucking big in the shadows moving around." We all looked about, but my brother-in-law's brother and myself couldn't see anything. Right then and there, we decided to pack our shit and get out of there. It took us about 5 minutes. Nothing put away nicely, just thrown in the back of the ute, and we drove around 100 kilometers before we pulled up. We all slept in the ute with it idling for the night. And that was the end of that trip. Thanks for listening and take care. Cheers, an Aussie mate. There you go. I think this is fairly recent. So if you're still hanging here, I'm sure you are. I wonder how many people you've spoke with around your social groups or neighborhood, whatever. Obviously, you're going to know a lot of other fellas that are doing the same shit you are, right? Just like me, knowing a lot of guys up here in Canada. And I wonder if you're speaking openly about that with them and what you've heard back. Or I wonder if you have spoke to the indigenous people there, if you spoke to them to get some goop from them on the topic. And how do you feel about going out there shooting roos at night by yourself now? Right? And all the same things happening, right? The same patterns. Continents, oceans away. Different continent across the ocean. Exact same shit going down. There you go. You know, it's funny, I was thinking the other day, this morning, whenever, let's just say somebody got a clear video of one of these people. Then what? You know what I mean? You know, like you hear so many people, I haven't seen a video, I haven't seen a picture. All right, well, let's just say, and I do have a very good video on my phone without permission to share it publicly yet still. I should probably email where I got that and see what's up in the status of that, but I've got what could be considered way better than the Patterson footage. Yes, it's true. But anyway, moving along. Let's just say somebody showed you, I mean, we're talking whites of the eyes, wrinkles, eyelashes, clear. For real. As in saliva, tongue moving around, speaking, all the facial muscles moving, a real, live, human, not human, hair-covered being 10 feet tall on video, broad daylight. Well, then what? What's that going to do? What's it going to change? Right? Like, honestly picture it. Somebody comes forward with that today. What do you think is honestly going to happen from that video? Let's see, from the pattern that we are watching going on today with all the truths in North America, because it turns out that, especially this year, we are finding out that as North Americans, maybe you want to call it Western populations, whatever, we are being lied to about everything. And that is true. It's very frustrating and unfortunate. But anyway, I'm thinking somebody comes forward with that crystal clear video today. First off, the people in control of the internet, the dirty, filthy criminals that are in government, they're just going to say it was fake. Right? Then what? What are you going to do? What are you going to do with it? Right? Like, seriously, you guys, think about it. What are you going to do with it? Here's crystal clear video proof. Okay, there you go. Crystal clear. We're talking high def, standing there breathing, farting, taking a piss, flies flying around its head, whatever. There it is. Now what? Now be honest with yourself. Now what? What's that going to change? Seriously, what is that going to change? And I think a lot of people, your first reaction is going to be, well, then the government has to acknowledge it. Who gives a shit about the government? Like, my God, if I could pummel anything into the population's heads, it would be, number one, who gives a shit about any government today? Who gives a shit? They were originally formed to be a service to the people by the people. It's not anymore. They are a dark criminal entity on the face of the planet. Kicked to the curb. So, now what are you going to do with the video? Right? You're going to make it mandatory to have that video put into the school education system and shown in biology classes? I don't know. I mean, seriously, guys, what are you going to do with it? Then what? I don't really see it doing much of anything myself, right? Maybe you finally get to show it to your neighbor or your husband or your wife or your brother or sister, somebody who's been arguing with you forever. See, there you go. I told you it was real. Okay, well, big deal. Now you showed them the video. Now what? Not much, right? Not much. Unless you can get this being to speak fluent English and tell us what's up and tell us the truth, and that would be something. Now that would be something. If that being finally, say right here out my glass window here, stood right there. Boom! Holy shit. And they said, all right, you want to know all the honest to God truths that we have? Sit down. We're going to fill you in. Now that would be something. That would be everything. That would be everything for me. But just a video? Big deal. It's not going to do shit. Prove me wrong. Maybe I'm missing something. Crystal, perfect photograph. All right, there you go. There it is. Now what? Right? It's not going to do shit. We need the answers. We need the true, honest answers of our history, who we are, who they are, how they fit, where they come from, why all the bullshit, why the hiding. Right? And just a video clip or a photograph ain't going to do that. It's not. It's not going to do shit. It's not going to answer nothing. A video or photo isn't going to answer one question that we have at this stage of the game. Wow, there's a ramble. Wait a minute. Let's get a little more caffeine in there, shall we? All right, who's next? What's this one? How long is this? Pretty long. Not too long. I'm going in. Going all in. Mark this as red. As we search for all of the true answers together. Hi, Steve. Bracket, side note, warning. This is about 10 minutes long. I'm all in, man. It may seem like a broken record, but in all sincerity, thank you for all the work and time and passion that you give to getting voices heard on the Sasquatch topic. This is truly the place to learn more about the Sabe and other mysteries. I also love your rants. You can use my name as I have stopped caring what people think of me a long time ago. Right on. Welcome to the club of the brave and free, and I appreciate the kind words. My name is David Merrifield. I grew up in around Windsor, Ontario. Moved to Thunder Bay, Ontario in 75, then Kamloops, BC. Then 2 years in Swift Current, that'll be Saskatchewan, and then back to Kamloops. As of this summer, my wife and I, have moved to Suffield, Alberta. I tell you this for two reasons. First, each province across Canada has a little different attitude on the topic of Sasquatch. Example is, Southern Ontario has a, quote, do you really believe that shit, end quote, mentality. Versus the BC coastal, I've got a story for you. And second is, each province has its own book of stories. Some get told and some don't. Ontario is the worst for not telling their stories, but I know they are out there. This is the reason I finally kicked myself in the butt to write to you, to encourage people in Ontario to come forward with their stories/encounters. How do I know there's lots of untold stories? Let me explain from the beginning. All right, we actually get quite a few from Ontario. Excuse me. In 1972, my parents, myself, 4 sisters, and a full-grown collie dog in a station wagon, pulling a homemade crank-up camper trailer, took a vacation road trip from Windsor to Vancouver, BC. Wow. To see an ant. One of the stops was Harrison Hot Springs, where I bought a book about Sasquatch by Renee DeHinden. I was hooked. But life kept moving on. From 72 to 74, I got a diploma in forestry at Lakehead University. Funny that Sasquatch was never mentioned in my biology or wildlife courses, haha. Yeah, that's kind of odd, isn't it? I wonder why. One of the bigger questions. Why not? Fast forward, married, moved to Thunder Bay, 4 kids. They all got married off, and now I'm experiencing empty nest syndrome. So, I punch in, quote, Sasquatch, end quote, into Google. It was like some one-handed, it's 2 words. Should have been 1. It was like someone handed me a book 6 inches thick, and when I was finished, I was handed another 6-inch book. I joined some Sasquatch organizations, but not the BF one. Funny that even 25 years ago, they had a bad reputation among other so-called researchers. And at the time, there was no Ontario organization or Sasquatch. So a group of us started Ontario Sasquatch Research, or OSR for short. We had a website and a database which we called Collected Info. People could write in with their encounters, and we keep things confidential. The stories come from everywhere in Ontario, even in my own backyard at Thunder Bay. Truck drivers, loggers, hunters, people out walking their dogs up hydro lines. Now for my own story. I was a carpenter working on a government building in Armstrong, Ontario, 3 hours north of Thunder Bay in the winter of 2005. A coworker and I would drive a cube van with tools and materials up on a Monday, stay the week, and come home Friday. On one trip up, I was noticing the tracks of deer and moose in the snow, but once in a while I would see tracks that had long strides in a straight line and no dragging in the snow, like moose tracks did. After passing 4 sets of tracks, I said to my coworker, if I see another set like that, I'm pulling over to investigate. And sure enough, we saw a set and I took photos of them, and you can still see them on Bobby Short's Bigfoot Encounters website under Ontario sightings. Those 5 steps from the bush line covered 25 feet going uphill to the road in 13 inches of snow, no dragging. Some people commented online that it was a snowshoe hare, but there was a middle layer of ice in the snow, and a rabbit would not have broken through that. The part that's not on the website is that 3 months later, as we were finishing the job on the way home, and I stopped to look at the site, it had been raining all week and the snow was melting fast, but I still found one of the footprints as an ice pedestal 6 inches the rest of the melting snow. No rabbit's going to compress the snow like that. My tracks don't even do that. This was a turning point for me. Even though I hadn't seen one yet, I knew they existed. We moved to Kamloops, BC in 2006, and on one of our trips, back and forth to Thunder Bay, we had a sighting. 1.5 hours west of Thunder Bay, just before the Savannah River. Savannah River, Savanne. It was 10:30 a.m. on a long straight stretch when I saw what I thought was a moose come out of the tree line from the left about 2 kilometers ahead. I let off the fuel knowing I let off on the fuel knowing it had lots of time to cross the road before I got there, expecting it to jump in a swampy area, a ditch filled with cattails. And this is the weird part. Instead of bounding over the ditch, This is the weird part. Instead of bounding over the ditch, hit the road bank, and run across the road, it dove into the bulrushes and hid. This creature was as big as a moose, but in my mind's eye, it had no head, as if someone had cut it off, 6 inches above the shoulders. Excuse me. The legs were different too, being thick all the way down, not like a moose's starting off thick and getting thinner down. I thought, where the heck did it go? I kept slowing down, searching the shoulder to see where it had gone, but when I had passed the point where it should have crossed, I pulled over. I was kind of rattled. What animal that size hides? Common sense kicked in, and knowing about Sasquatch, if this thing doesn't want to be seen, I better just leave it alone. I just put the car back in gear and drove off, my mind just spinning. From the time I first saw it until it disappeared was a couple of seconds. There was no time to even think of taking a picture. So I drew a picture of what I remember seeing while it was fresh in my mind, and I'll attach my sketch. I've over the last 25 years asked hundreds of people about Sasquatch and have been given many stories. BC is the best, for I believe 50% of the people either have a story or know someone who has. The native people have the best and the most stories, and I thank them for enlightening me. My interest in Sasquatch started to dwindle as I didn't have to prove it to myself, and because there is so much more going on right now. COVID and the vaccine, climate change, gun control, to mention a few, but it was your channel here that rekindled my interest and gave me more pieces to my puzzle. And for that I thank you, and the How to Hunt family. God be with you and your family. So one more story. I was sitting beside a native couple at a fundraising dinner for a Christian radio station, and being that he was from Long Lac area, I asked the man if he had ever seen a Sasquatch. He must have thought I was nuts, but politely said no. But did have some friends that were camping and had the tent flap zip up and its head looked in. Then pulled its head back out and zipped the flap back down and left. There's no need to embellish this. Please encourage more Ontario people to come forward with their stories. And this bit is just for you, Steve. Okay, I got you, man. I got you. If I get time, I'll try to pull it off. Okay? And there's your sketch. And that's the end of the email. That looks pretty big compared to the road, doesn't it? All right, I'll put that into the video. Let's make sure I save it to my photo album. And there you go. More people from Ontario. I think people just share when they're ready. You know, I mean, there is so many people here. It's a little mind-boggling. Like we can't go anywhere without somebody saying hi. We went to this little coffee shop yesterday when I was out picking up my pickup truck again. And a couple of kind ladies walked through and she looked up, she goes, I recognize you. You know, it's everywhere. Here. Not just here, but everywhere. I'm just saying there is so many people. And I do believe that you cannot, I guess, I don't know. I mean, we can't really do much more to encourage people to share their stories, but keep doing this, right? I mean, I could say it's kind of like the like, subscribe, share thing. You can't really get people to do things. People need to decide to on their own. And the door's wide frickin' open here. They know that, right? But I'll say it just for shits and giggles. You people in Ontario who are scared to share it now. You know what I mean? Get it out. Get it shared. Help each other. Help each other with truth, all right? While we still can. While we still can. The freedom of us and speech on the internet is rapidly diminishing and disappearing. It's very, very frustrating to watch. It's real frustrating to watch. It makes me angry. It makes me want to get an army and just go out and wipe these MFers off the face of the planet. As it should make everybody that angry, right? Biting my lip. Biting my lip. Yeah, my truck, side note on that, it's the cluster, which goes to the main computer. It's toast, and it takes almost 2 weeks to get a new one. And know that other pickup trucks, back there ain't running. So, I picked up my pickup yesterday, brought it home. I'm just going to pull the fuse for the windshield wipers out so they don't go nonstop, and I'm going steelhead fishing. I don't give a shit. The sucker breaks down, I'll hitchhike. I'm going bonkers being inside, and I'm taking everybody with me. Now, appreciate that email, my man. Absolutely appreciate it. BC. There's a lot. I think probably in Saskatchewan, Ontario, Manitoba, you got to get rural probably, and start asking openly, and you probably get just as many people coming forward. But I have told people around here, I don't give a shit who you are. If you look people square up, look them in the eye, no laughing. Have you ever seen anything kind of weird in the woods, or know anybody that's seen anything kind of odd in the woods that maybe possibly shouldn't exist or something, If they don't know, if they haven't, they know somebody. That is true. That's a true statement here in British Columbia. Big time. For reals. Who's next? This isn't too long. I'm going in. This is titled Attacked by Bigfoot. All right, here we go. Hi, Steve. My name is... Am I allowed to use this? Yep. All right, my name is Mac Milner, and you're free to use my name. I've been investigating reports of UFOs and Bigfoot casually over the past nearly 60 years, since I saw a UFO in 1964. About the same time I heard my dad and brother discuss a Bigfoot incident reported in a magazine. But the past 7 years, I've studied these subjects practically daily. Here's my story. About 11 years ago in the summer 2012, my wife and I went to Niagara Falls for a week of vacation. After staying in hotels for a week, we spent the last night in a bed and breakfast on the New York side in a very old home. There were maybe 10 other guests who spent the night there as well. The home was dark and spooky, perfect for a haunted house movie, but nothing happened. The next morning, we all ate breakfast together in the large dining room and chatted casually. Someone mentioned the spooky house and that she was nervous. It may have been haunted. This is my opportunity to explain that ghosts are not spirits or departed people, but in truth are demons pretending to be the spirits of departed people. The conversation somehow moved to Bigfoot, and I explained that this too was a spiritual being, not a flesh and blood animal living in the forest. It is actually some kind of demonic creature. I then told them the story of a demon possession incident that occurred in the 1950s, and the most documented demon possession story ever recorded. To look it up and read about it yourself or your listeners, the account can be found by Googling Lester Sumrall, Sumrall, who was the evangelist that went to the jail where a 15-year-old girl was incarcerated and experienced attacks that resulted in bites on her shoulders and upper arms, some of which were 2 inches deep. Oh, that's creepier than shit. The girl was the only one who could see the demon who was biting her. To everyone else, it was invisible. After a few weeks, Lester Sumrall was able to cast it out. The girl described it in such a way that it sounded similar to how a Bigfoot is described, except, of course, this one had fangs. Holy shit, that's creepy. I don't know if I want to even watch that. Hence the Exorcist movie when I was a kid, right? Damaged. I went on to explain that the Bigfoot creature is also a demonic being, and that the Bible is true, and Jesus is real, and the only way a human being can have eternal life. That was the important thing, that faith in Jesus Christ and his personal sacrifice on the cross is the only way for us to be forgiven of our sins. I want them to know that this is God's means of forgiving us of our sins and giving us eternal life when we die. Everyone was very interested in the story, and shortly thereafter, we all left the bed and breakfast to go on our separate ways. My wife and I went for a hike on the Niagara River. It was a long hike down into the chasm to the river below, where we were well past the falls. There on a steep embankment, with forest all around us, we made our way all the way down the maybe 2-mile hike to the river, lingered a while, and then returned back up the trail. As we climbed the trail, I was feeling relaxed and lazy amid the beautiful surroundings and weather. It was getting to be late in the afternoon, but still plenty of sunlight. My wife got ahead of me and disappeared over a slight rise in the path, so I lingered in a spot to where I saw an unusually pretty flower. When I looked up, she was gone, so I determined to start a slow jog to catch up. Very close ahead was a tree on my left with roots across the path that were exposed due to erosion. I took mental note of them to be sure I wouldn't trip over them. As I approached that spot in the trail, jogging very slowly, my left foot was suddenly violently struck from behind and underneath, thrusting it wildly forward with incredible force. It struck an exposed root, and instantly I felt pain in my left big toe. At the same time, something broad and flat hit me on my right shoulder blade, throwing me violently to my left. And with my left foot stuck on the exposed root, I fell to my left, or should I say, I was thrown to my left. Down I went, onto the rough path. I extended my hands to break my fall, but that did no good. I smashed my chest into the path hard. I felt a good amount of pain, but I instantly looked over my right shoulder to see who or what hit me, and there was no one there. The forest was not thick at all, and I could see a good distance up the hillside as well as the path behind me. Whatever it was that attacked me was invisible. My sternum hurt for 3 months before it recovered from the impact. My left big toe was fractured, and the bottom of my foot turned purple from internal bleeding. My hands were bruised and had small pebbles from the path embedded in them because of the force of the fall. Something big and strong and angry had thrown me down. Excuse me. I'm certain I was attacked as an act of revenge by a Bigfoot demonic being for revealing the true identity of these things to the people at breakfast that morning. I've heard other reports of Bigfoot sightings where people saw them suddenly materialize or disappear right before their eyes. That's because of the spirit nature of these things. They are genetic constructs that have their origins in the times of the Nephilim in Genesis chapter 6 in the Bible. I believe they are extremely hostile and dangerous. The accounts in which they appear friendly are incidences where they want to deceive people. They are largely unable to harm us because God limits what they can do, but I believe in certain circumstances they can. I want to close my story by saying that I'll be careful to use the name of Jesus to drive these things away, just like any other demon, the next time I'm hiking in the forest. I hope you'll share this, Steve, and that you will invite Jesus to be your God and Savior. Once you know him, you too can use his name to command demons to flee from you. Who knows, it could save you injury and harm someday, but when you're out there by yourself. Keep up the good work. God bless you and your family. Mac Milner. There you go, Mac. Appreciate that, man. Take it from what you will or leave it, you guys, but don't blow a frickin' gasket if you don't agree with his beliefs. All right? That's what we do here. You listen up. You be polite. You take from what you will or you leave it. Too simple. There you go. And I appreciate the time you just took to share that with us. So I probably won't be looking up that video of that girl just because I just don't need that shit in my life. That's all. For me personally. But anybody else, there you go. there is a link to get freaked the F out. And there's no shortage in people sharing. Genesis chapter 6 has been mentioned a lot of times here. There's a lot of people out there convinced that is the answer. Take from what you will or leave it, all right, you guys? But look into everything. Listen to everybody. Listen to everybody. All right, I'm going to read one more. It's got a whole pile of photos. Holy. All right, here we go. Here we go. This is titled Hocking, Hocking Hills. 2020 scariest trip ever, with photos. All right, let me mark this as red. This is sent recently. Hi, Steve. You can use my first name, please, not my last. Thank you. I gotcha. My husband and I have followed you on YouTube for a few years now, and we have enjoyed listening to your videos, as well as standing up for what you believe in. As my loving late mom used to say, quote, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything, end quote. I also believe these creatures are Nephilim, which were giants in the Bible, and were fallen angels as stated in the book of Genesis. Coincidence? Right, 2 in a row. I'd like to share with you my frightening experience that I had with my best friend when we went to Hocking Hills in Logan, Ohio, August 2020. We arrived and we were greeted by an older gentleman who was the owner of the cabin. As I looked around, I saw his A-frame cabin that was located about 100 yards from the cabin we rented for the weekend. He proceeded to explain to my friend and I some things about the cabin. If we lock ourselves out, there is a key hidden behind the wreath. There is firewood for us to use. He mowed a path for us to hike on, which is located next to the cabin, and if anyone gets 5 feet from the cabin, a spotlight goes on. I felt the urge to ask this guy and said, are there any Bigfoot around here? He looked at me and answered me in a disgruntled way and replied, there's no such thing, that's a myth. I thought his reply was weird. He seemed angry and annoyed with my question. My friend and I proceeded to drop off our suitcases inside the cabin and got ready for a hike, which was a small area next to the cabin. As we were walking, it was hot and the sun was shining, a gorgeous day to be outside. As we turned the corner, the sun was going away and dark clouds were coming. I thought to myself, maybe a storm was coming. However, it felt very eerie. The birds stopped chirping, and it became extremely windy and chilly. We continued on our hike, and I started to hear tree breaks in the woods to the right of me. In my spirit, I felt something was off. I felt extremely vulnerable, and that we needed to get back to the cabin as soon as possible. I call that discernment that God gives us, our internal alarm system to let us know when you need to leave and go to safety. I tried to hide my concerns about my friend, but my friend read it all over my face. I'd shared with my friend that when my husband and I would go to my parents' cabin, we would have strange experiences such as hearing whoops and low growling, seen large footprints in tree structures, so she was clearly aware we might have an experience here. This is not my first rodeo. It was time to build a fire outside and eat some s'mores. A little bit of time went by and I had to go back into the cabin to get more chocolate. Came back out and my friend's eyes were as big as gumballs. She said she had heard a very loud growl. And then all of a sudden we heard dogs barking far off in the distance, very loud. And the dogs began to yelp, which sounded like they were in pain. Not your ordinary bark you hear. Then the barking stopped, dead silence. In my mind, I was thinking maybe those dogs were chained up and coyotes got a hold of them. I do know that Bigfoots do not like dogs. We were so freaked out, we stood up quickly with our hearts beating out of our chest and ran back to the cabin. Was that our imagination? I doubt it. It's around 9 p.m. We already had our dinner and we thought it would be relaxing to clear our minds and use the hot tub. The hot tub was located outside on the back deck. We pulled back the top of the hot tub, climbed in, and we were talking about our day. And all of a sudden, my friend is looking towards the woods and points and says, "Look." As she points to the pine trees to the right of the back deck, about 15 to 20 feet from the cabin, we see these huge yellow blinking lights that look like eyes high into the tree, and another set of yellow blinking eyes next to it about a foot below. I could care less what I thought it could be. Owl, raccoon, or squirrel, those eyes would not be as big. We jumped out of the hot tub, trying not to slip, ran into the cabin, locked the door, and shoved the kitchen chair under the doorknob. Laughing so hard, nervously, seeing a chair up against the door, like that's going to hold back anything. I was starting to think this trip was not a good idea without our husbands. I began to look around the kitchen. What can we use for protection? All I knew is that I'm a Christian and a child of God, and that his angels can take charge and cover us. I finally calmed down, took a shower. We popped in a movie. And all of a sudden, the spotlight on the front porch turned on. I turned to my friend and said, "What the heck triggered that spotlight?" I'm thinking deer, raccoon, some type of critter, etc. I ran to the window to peek through the blinds, to which I saw nothing. I was thinking we are not staying another night. Sleep finally came. The next day was daylight and not feeling as scared, so we went to Cedar Falls, which was about 30 miles from the cabin, to go hiking. I felt comfortable since there were many tourists there. My friend did take a lot of pictures, but because she said she kept hearing things coming from the woods. After hiking for a few hours, we came back to the cabin, made dinner. It was time to relax. I guess we were brave enough, or stupid, but we did stay another night. I was about to fall asleep, and the next thing we heard sent chills up and down my spine. We heard foot stomping on the front porch, which shook the entire cabin. I couldn't even move. I was frozen in fear, and I could not sleep. I just prayed for our safety. I finally fell asleep, maybe around 2:30 a.m. Excuse me, when I woke up, my friend said she heard what seemed like a huge rock hit the back door of the cabin. I went outside to look for what hit the door and found nothing. I travel quite a bit with my husband as well, my best friends, and let me tell you something. I was ready to check out and head home immediately. This trip was terrifying. After we came home from our trip, I studied the photos that my friend took, and I believe what she heard was a Bigfoot. If you zoom in on these photos I am sending, you clearly see the faces in the photos. They reminded me of photos Scott Carpenter has. Do I still enjoy the outdoors? Absolutely. I ski, bike ride, hike, and camp. However, I have no desire anymore to stay at a cabin in the woods or hike deep into the woods. I don't try and seek these beings out. Food for thought for some viewers. Do I believe in Bigfoot? Yes. Have I seen them face to face? No, I haven't. Do I believe in Wi-Fi? Yes. Can I see Wi-Fi? No, I cannot. Do I believe in God? I sure do. Have I seen God face to face? No, I have not. Just because I can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. God bless you, Steve, and be safe. Okay, you too. And there you go. Photos. I'm not looking too closely at them because I'm just scrolling up on my phone, but I will I'll load these into the video. And there you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. The patterns are strong. That's going to be something. I spoke with our favorite book cover graphic illustrator creator, Roy Dye. He's going to be he is going to be creating me a cover for my hunting book. I'm almost completed my Blacktail Hunter book. It's going to be exciting to get that out. And we already spoke previously. We're going to put together a book of just the patterns, all the patterns that all of you have shared, honestly shared. We're going to create a book full of these strong patterns in your face, all of them when it comes to this topic, these beings, these people. All right? No withholding anything because it sounds too far out there. If it's a strong pattern, it's going in that frickin' handbook. And then take from what you will, leave it. It's going to go around the planet. It's time to get the truth shared, the truth on paper so nobody can delete it, right? That's the sweet thing about books. Once a book hits a coffee table in a household, everybody has full access to it and it can't be deleted, altered in any frickin' way. Right? Books are important. Anyway, that's going to go down. That's going to go down. Here goes my brain. Okay, I got to get going. I got to carry on my day, get what I need to get done today before the ladies. I got to go pick them up, bring them home, get this room heated up, get everybody comfortable. We're going to share a lot of first-hand knowledge. It's going to be very interesting. I can't wait. And then we're going to chow down on some elk shoulder. Share my story at howtohunt.com. That's where you get your experience, your knowledge shared word for word. Here.